Hello everyone, we are officially back from Italy where I was able to get a lot of good footage and photos of rock-related goodies for you. My mom invited my wife and I, along with my sister, her husband, and their granddaughter for a 2-week bus tour with Gate 1 Travel, starting in Lake Como, which is in northern Italy, and going all the way down to Naples, passing through such cities as Bellagio, Verona, Venice, Florence, Assisi, Rome, Pompeii, and Amalfi. Come along as in these next several videos we take a look at these unique and interesting rocks that we might otherwise never get to see. When it comes to the subject of urban rockhounding, there is likely no other place quite like Italy. First of all, for many centuries, the Roman Empire, with its extremely egotistical emperors, expanded to cover a vast area encompassing much of the then-known world. Due to their idea that the only way to live on in eternity was to be remembered by future generations, they were obsessed with creating massive and enduring structures out of stone. Add to this that they had an inexhaustible supply of easy-to-replace slave labor, along with very skilled architects. There is literally no end to the array of rocks extracted from almost every hillside in the empire, all assembled into mind-blowing iconic structures. Secondly, we have the Roman Catholic Church, which in many ways reflected this same obsession with massive structures made of stone, and they continued this legacy for many more centuries. Often these cathedrals and towers took several centuries to construct, lavishly decorated with a myriad of many colorful stones that they could find. If you consider yourself an urban rockhound at heart, and I will say this again in the upcoming video about Rome, I recommend a visit to this country, and Rome in particular. I have said this in my earlier videos of such places, that I am not a travel channel, nor am I a history channel, and I will not even try to cover those subjects with any degree of completeness. I endeavor to include enough information, however, on these aspects so that if you are interested, you can research the names and places on your own, since there are many channels and sources dedicated to such matters. This 2-week tour was with a busload of tourists, along with millions of other tourists, and many times I was recording as we hurried along in long lines on very tight time constraints. For example, we only had a 1-hour stop at Pisa to see the famous Leaning Tower, and by the time you find and then wait in line again at a bathroom, buy a souvenir or two, and walk to the tower itself, well, you get the idea. So please excuse the apparent quick glance aspect of some of these locations. A few years ago we did go inside St. Peter's in Rome, and I could likely spend a week just studying the stones used in that floor, and we were there for maybe an hour or so. Another thing to keep in mind when looking at any of these structures, and indeed the massive size of the individual stone components at times, is that there was no machinery, no electricity, no engines of any kind. In some instances, for example, for the more ancient temples such as those of the early Greeks, Rome, and Egypt, it is believed that they would keep adding sand as they worked their way up, setting stones in place as they went, and then they would remove all that sand to reveal the temple after it was complete. We are talking about literal mountains of sand. The sand served to keep them working at ground level. Many other ingenious ideas came into play, I am sure. For me, the giant columns that are often made of one single piece of stone are particularly fascinating. Not only the manual labor involved in making one, but then getting it to the site and getting it stood up. It is truly a fascinating subject. Again, I am not a structural engineering channel, but one can't help but at least touch on such amazing achievements that have been done with our beloved rocks. As a rockhound, literally everything becomes of interest. The extensive streets and squares are often paved with gazillions of tiny rectangular stone cobbles, each placed by hand, And when they are paved with larger stones, these can be of endless varieties. Even the curbing of the streets is made of stone. I really saw very little cement used in the older sections of these cities. So make sure you always look down while at the same time looking straight ahead so you don't trip. The floors to me in the cathedrals and older government buildings are also just as fascinating as the lavishly decorated walls and ceilings. We really need more eyes. 6 or 8 eyes would be great, or at least more time, lots more time. Another unique aspect of these structures is that since at the time they were built, there were no easy methods of transport. It wasn't like you can just load up giant blocks onto a cargo ship and send them across the ocean. So stone quarried locally was obviously preferred. And so in each place you are guaranteed to see completely new varieties of stone, sometimes quarried right where the building was constructed. Assisi is a good example of this. The church structures and much of the town itself was built of a beautiful red and white limestone quarried out of the same hills that they sit on. I included Pompeii here in part due to the stones used in its construction, but mostly because of what a snapshot it is of a city caught off guard by a massive volcanic eruption from Mount Vesuvius. What you are seeing here was buried quite deeply underground and unknown for many centuries. Again, today's video is a general summary of things to keep in mind when in Italy as a rockhound. In the upcoming videos from this trip, I will be going much deeper into each place and site visited, specifically as it pertains to the stones presented, inasmuch as I am able to find information, of course. If you are passionate about a rockhound-oriented visit to Italy, or anywhere else for that matter, I would love to hear about it in the comments, and I also encourage you to read the comments to see what other people are saying. Also, if you are knowledgeable on anything relating to the stones or places seen, please comment. Obviously, there is no collecting in such situations, and we only have visual observations and maybe some historical knowledge on which to base our assumptions. But that does not make urban rockhounding any less enjoyable. All through the trip, I was imagining a rock-related tour visiting the countless quarries where we would be able to collect some pieces. I am not sure how fast I will put these videos together from this trip, but several are already coming along. My biggest task is to try and research the notable stones used and the techniques involved in building what we are looking at. This will be a lot of fun. This video also serves as an introduction to my Out and About with Chris playlist, which mostly consists of videos of this nature from my trip to Germany, which was last summer, and an earlier trip to Rome, that was 2 years ago, and now the videos that will result from this trip across Italy. If you like this type of content and have not seen those videos, I encourage you to do so. The tour to Germany was much more relaxed since it was a river cruise, and so those videos I narrated off the cuff as we went along, whereas here I am adding in the narration with voiceover after the fact. I am eager for your take on these subjects, and please remember to like, share, and if you have not yet done so, subscribe so you don't miss upcoming excitement. Again, we are a rock and geology related channel, and these travel videos won't be very often, but they do come along from time to time.